Right, so SABC News reporter Natasha Phiri and video journalist Thabiso Rapakuana at the ANC Women's League Conference. And we're going to cross to them live. Natasha, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. It is day 2 of the ANC Women's League Conference. Perhaps you could walk us through what's been happening throughout the day.
Definitely, Lisa. And of course, to our SABC viewers, it is indeed day 2 of the 13th ANC Women's League Conference here in Nasrec, the south of Johannesburg. And just earlier on, we saw the Secretary General of the ANC, Mr. Fikile Mbalula, just addressing the over 3,000 delegates. And of course, he touched on various a numerous number of issues, that of coalitions. And I think that's very interesting because yesterday, in delivering her political report, the convener of the ANC Women's League, Balega Mbete, had said that, the ANC needs to be alive to the fact that, listen, they are now living in an era of coalitions, and the ANC needs to be aware of that and be amenable to that idea. But of course, we heard there the Secretary General of the ANC, Mr. Fikile Mbalula, saying that the party is not working for coalitions, Liesel, but of course it's working for an overwhelming majority at next year's crucial 2024 polls. He says that the ANC deserves to return to power without asking for help from any other political party. But of course, I'm also joined here by our political editor, Mzwandile Mbete, who's also been noticing and keeping up with developments of this conference. We're supposed to be joined by Dina Pule, but I do understand that she's currently unavailable right now. Mr. Mbete, you've seen and you've heard what the Secretary General had to say, especially around coalitions. And this is interesting because, I mean, you look at the state of our municipalities, especially in Johannesburg, you look at those issues of coalitions and they're not stable, not at all.
Oh, thank you very much, Natasha. And then, of course, you can listen from his tone that he actually wants the ANC to reclaim its position. So he actually is aware to the past issues relating to the ANC. It's lost a lot of ground, and I think this speech here is part of that. In fact, the fact that this conference is happening, you remember when he took over as the Secretary General of the ANC, he said one of the things that he will make sure that they happen is that all these leagues must sit so that they have an elected structure. So how does that help? It helps in then in giving legitimacy in organizing for the ANC, particularly ahead of 2024. So when it came to the issue of the local government and municipalities and coalitions, I think the reason why he was so firm and clear, because he realizes that without an outright majority, it doesn't matter whether you are the bigger party. So the smaller parties can still dictate terms. And I think he doesn't want that kind of a situation. The examples of Johannesburg, Tshwane, Ekurhuleni and elsewhere have indicated that if the ANC continues not to win with outright, it will be difficult.
Just looking at the state of this conference, I mean, it was also marred by delays. Yesterday, the conference didn't start on time. Today, it was also a late start. What do you make of this and the reading also into this conference?
I think we cannot separate the Women's League from the broader ANC politics. It's been the case. Even the national conference started very late in December. We saw that in the Youth League, and same thing is happening here. So the ANC of the leagues is also influenced by the broader ANC of the ANC. But the fact of the matter is that there is some improvement in the fact that these days these conferences are not collapsing. Even if they are late, they are able to push them. Perhaps is one way of showing that they want to do things quite differently. But what is going to be important, Natasha, is when then the leadership is elected. So will they be able to rally around that person or that collective which will be elected, or then you'll see them going back to their shells and of course factions? Let's
look at this leadership race. It's a 3-horse race. You have the former president of the ANC Women's League, Bathabile Dlamini, going against the former Secretary General of the ANC Women's League, Sisi Sitolashe, and of course ANC MP Thembeka Mkhunu.
It's quite interesting. I would have thought perhaps given the challenges that the leagues really have been going through, they may be able to come up with a consensus. But obviously there's nothing wrong in contesting each other. That's why in my previous answer I said, for me it would be interesting to see if the other leadership that would have failed to be elected is able to then rally behind that one. But obviously, by the indications now, it does appear that Sisitolashe may be in the forefront. But of course, the vote is a secret, and we don't know what people will do when they are behind those.
And of course, we've heard that, there were late night meetings between those who are on Batabile Dlamini's slate, and of course, that of Thembeka Mkhunu.
It does give you an indication that they probably realize that if they fight as three-horse race, then they're going to lose. As I've just said, Sisitolashe seems to be very, very in the driving seat. So if you want to mount some credible challenge, you do obviously need some sort of unity. So I think those attempts were basically meant to do just that.
Well, I understand that my guest is actually here, my other guest, Mamdina Puli. Of course, Zandile, thank you so much for your time and for that analysis. Liesl, if you'll just permit me to actually speak to the spokesperson of the ANC Women's League's National Task Team, Medina Puli. Thank you so much for joining us at SABC News. Medina, it was the conference was off to a late start.
Yes.
One would have expected that after such a long time, because Labour side, why don't you start on time? Has the issue of the Northwest delegates been sorted out?
Okay, let me start about why we started late. It has been the system of registration. I think we had the system that we thought was going to help us quicker. Unfortunately, because of electricity, it crashed the other day. And then we had to improvise. You must also understand that it's not the Women's League's system that accredits, or register delegates. Here were assisted by the ANC, the mother body. So they came back and they assisted us. Now, to the issue of the Northwest.
Yes. Let's talk about that. Okay. I got a call yesterday.
Yeah.
Some people are claiming that they are bogus delegates that are being planted into those who are from the Northwest.
Yeah. Look, we were informed late yesterday because at the registration point, we still had so many delegates that were not clearing. And we were wondering, why are we still having so many delegates? So the steering committee in which I sit, that is chaired by Sis Baleka Ambet, we then discussed and they sent me, Comment Mahlobo and Caesar to go and check as to what is happening on behalf of the steering committee. We went there, I must tell you, we went there around 12:30. I walked out of there at 6 a.m. in the morning. I'm still a bit tired. But by the time we walk out of there, we had resolved the issues. There were no many issues that were difficult. It was a question of the leadership not speaking to each other and understanding each other and listening to each other. We found that there were very few. For example, in Bujanala, I think we had about 5 branches that were not registered, that we needed to just listen to why they're not registered, and we cleared them. And I think about 2 of the regional task team members, we were done. And then we went to Mulema. Also there was no issue. A few branches that were not appearing apparently on the registration form, but they were in the verification report and all. So we just had to compare the documents and we allowed them to be registered. And those we agreed that because it was late, by the time we agreed with them, it was almost 6, as I'm saying. So we said, no, women are tired, go and sleep and then come back at 8 and 8:30, so that then the team that registers was going to go and work that morning and print out the name tags, and then later on in the morning when they arrived, they were going to give them. And then we had what is the other one, Dr. RSM Ruth Mompati. Also we had a few branches that they did not clean them up, they themselves, because they didn't speak. So we requested the convener and the coordinator to sit together, and we called all the delegates, we addressed them, and we said, just wait for us, let the leadership clean, and they cleaned them. So it was clean. Then we were left with Dr. KK. We tried, but already at that time, the team that is registering, many of the young people were very tired. So I had to release them to go and rest, and then so they can come in the morning. Now, as we speak, we have cleared almost everything, and the credentials are going to be presented to conference.
Okay.
Yeah.
But just reflecting on what the Secretary General of the ANC had said, that, you know, women need to find expression, especially women at this conference.
Yes.
They need to find expression within the ANC. Do you think that the ANC Women's League is still relevant, especially to women out there in society?
Yeah, there is no way that the Women's League cannot be relevant. The Women's League is a voice of so many women. You see, these delegates that are here, they represent branches. Each and every branch of the ANC in the wards, we call them branches, but if you count all the wards in South Africa, there is a branch of the ANC Women's League, and those branches, they start from 50 and upward. So even where a branch has 50 members, it means that branch represents 50 voices that are voiceless there. So indeed, yes, they are relevant. We still have issues. We still have women that are poor. We still have women that are struggling with unemployment. We still actually struggling with GBV, you know. On a daily basis, women are killed, women are beaten up, women are abused, either at work or at home. So the voice of the Women's League, of the ANC Women's League, is very relevant in all those issues.
Another issue is that women don't rally and support each other. You know, I also like what the Secretary General of the ANC had said inside, that women must support each other. Women must stop this thing of always voting for men.
Yes.
What's your take on it?
That's a true, you know, I was so happy. I actually, after he had spoken and we had clapped hands, I went back to him to say thank you very much for having raised those things, because it's very important for us to support each other. Unfortunately, my take is that probably we've been, you know, so isolated and having so many problems to have thought at some point, if I do it alone, I can manage it. But look, this is conference. Contestations are normal in any situation where there's a conference, and we accept it. And I think that's what the SG was saying, that please try to talk together where you can, you know, and make sure that you have agreements, but where you can't, please don't go to the vote.
Okay. Thank you so much for this conversation. Of course, we will be having more conversations like this, Liesl, of course, as we will be camped out here the whole day and possibly the whole night. We might be actually pulling an all-nighter tonight, as those nominations and elections of those officials will also take place later on. Of course, Liesl, from me and Thabiso, it's back to you in studio for now.
Natasha, thank you. Thank you for that update. Hope you're also managing to stay warm given the extreme weather conditions. But Natasha Phiri, our reporter on the ground at Nasrec, currently at the ANC Women's League conference that is underway at the Nasrec Expo Centre. They're there to elect new leadership, as we heard that it has been marred by some delays. But they are off to a good start. Yesterday, the task team convener, Balega Mbete, having delivered the political report, touching on quite a few issues that affected the Women's League that had been taken over by the task team since 2022. Of course, we know when the executive term had expired. So we also are going to look at the relevance of the Women's League to date, perhaps a succession plan, the role of youth within the Women's League, and really how they're going to play their role to help mobilize this as the country heads closer to the national elections that are obviously set to take place next year.